Labrador by Anonymous. The following narrative is from the periodical account of the Moravian missions. It contains some of the most impressive descriptions I ever remember to have read. Brother Samuel Lebise was at the time of this occurrence entrusted with the general care of the Brethren's missions on the coast of Labrador. The duties of his office required a visit to Akak, the most northern of our settlements, and about 150 English miles distant from Nain, the place where he resided. Brother William Turner being appointed to accompany him, they left Nain together on March the 11th, 1782, early in the morning, with very clear weather, the stars shining with uncommon luster. The sledge was driven by the baptized Esquimaux Mark, and another sledge with Esquimaux joined company. An Esquimaux sledge is drawn by a species of dogs, not unlike a wolf in shape. Like them, they never bark, but howl disagreeably. They are kept by the Esquimaux in greater or larger packs or teams, in proportion to the affluence of the master. They quietly submit to be harnessed for their work, and are treated with little mercy by the heathen Esquimaux, who make them do hard duty for the small quantity of food they allow them. This consists chiefly in offal, old skins, entrails, such parts of whale flesh as are unfit for other use, rotten whale fins, and 100. And if they are not provided with this kind of dog's meat, they leave them to go and seek dead fish or mussels upon the beach. When pinched with hunger they will swallow almost anything, and on a journey it is necessary to secure the harness within the snow house overnight, lest, by devouring it, they should render it impossible to proceed in the morning. When the travelers arrive at their night quarters and the dogs are unharnessed, they are left to burrow on the snow, where they please, and in the morning are sure to come at their driver's call, when they receive some food. Their strength and speed, even with a hungry stomach, is astonishing. In fastening them to the sledge, care is taken not to let them go abreast. They are tied by separate thongs of unequal lengths to a horizontal bar in the forepart of the sledge. An old knowing one leads the way, running 10 or 20 paces ahead, directed by the driver's whip, which is of great length, and can be well managed only by an Esquimaux. The other dogs follow like a flock of sheep. If one of them receives a lash, he generally bites his neighbor, and the bite goes round. To return to our travelers. The sledge contained 5 men, 1 woman, and a child. All were in good spirits, and appearances being much in their favor, they hoped to reach Akak in safety in 2 or 3 days. The track over the frozen sea was in the best possible order, and they went with ease at the rate of 6 or 7 miles an hour. After they had passed the islands in the Bay of Nain, they kept at a considerable distance from the coast, both to gain the smoothest part of the ice, and to weather the high rocky promontory of Kiglapate. About 8 o'clock they met a sledge with Esquimaux turning in from the sea. After the usual salutation, the Esquimaux, alighting, held some conversation, as is their general practice, the result of which was that some hints were thrown out by the strange Esquimaux that it might be better to return. However, as the missionaries saw no reason whatever for it, and only suspected that the Esquimaux wished to enjoy the company of their friends a little longer, they proceeded. After some time, their own Esquimaux hinted that there was a ground swell under the ice. It was then hardly perceptible, except on lying down and applying the ear close to the ice, when a hollow, disagreeably grating and roaring noise was heard, as if ascending from the abyss. The weather remained clear, except towards the east, where a bank of light clouds appeared, interspersed with some dark streaks. But the wind being strong from the northwest, nothing less than a sudden change of weather was expected. The sun had now reached its height, and there was as yet little or no alteration in the appearance of the sky. But the motion of the sea under the ice had grown more perceptible, so as rather to alarm the travelers, and they began to think it prudent to keep closer to the shore. The ice had cracks and large fissures in many places, some of which formed chasms of 1 or 2 feet wide. But as they are not uncommon even in its best state, and the dogs easily leap over them, the sledge following without danger, they are only terrible to newcomers. As soon as the sun declined towards the west, the wind increased and rose to a storm, the bank of clouds from the east began to ascend, and the dark streaks to put themselves in motion against the wind. The snow was violently driven about by partial whirlwinds, both on the ice, and from off the peaks of the high mountains, and filled the air. At the same time the groundswell had increased so much that its effect upon the ice became very extraordinary and alarming. The sledges, instead of gliding along smoothly upon an even surface, sometimes ran with violence after the dogs, and shortly after seemed with difficulty to ascend the rising hill. For the elasticity of so vast a body of ice, of many leagues square, supported by a troubled sea, though in some places 3 or 4 yards in thickness, would, in some degree, occasion an undulatory motion not unlike that of a sheet of paper accommodating itself to the surface of a rippling stream. Noises were now likewise distinctly heard in many directions, like the report of cannon, owing to the bursting of the ice at some distance. The Esquimaux, therefore, drove with all haste towards the shore, intending to take up their night quarters on the south side of the Nivek. But as it plainly appeared that the ice would break and disperse in the open sea, Mark advised to push forward to the north of the Nivek, from whence he hoped the track to Akak might still remain entire. To this proposal the company agreed. But when the sledges approached the coast, the prospect before them was truly terrific. The ice, having broken loose from the rocks, was forced up and down, grinding and breaking into 1,000 pieces against the precipices, with a tremendous noise which, added to the raging of the wind, and the snow driving about in the air, deprived the travelers almost of the power of hearing and seeing anything distinctly. To make the land at any risk was now the only hope left, but it was with the utmost difficulty the frighted dogs could be forced forward, the whole body of ice sinking frequently below the surface of the rocks, then rising above it. As the only moment to land was when it gained the level of the coast, the attempt was extremely nice and hazardous. However, by God's mercy, it succeeded. Both sledges gained the shore and were drawn up the beach with much difficulty. The travelers had hardly time to reflect with gratitude to God on their safety, when that part of the ice from which they had just now made good their landing burst asunder, and the water, forcing itself from below, covered and precipitated it into the sea. In an instant, as if by a signal given, the whole mass of ice, extending for several miles from the coast, and as far as the eye could reach, began to burst and be overwhelmed by the immense waves. The sight was tremendous and awfully grand. The large fields of ice, raising themselves out of the water, striking against each other, and plunging into the deep with a violence not to be described, and a noise like the discharge of innumerable batteries of heavy guns. The darkness of the night, the roaring of the wind and sea, and the dashing of the waves and ice against the rocks, filled the travelers with sensations of awe and horror, so as almost to deprive them of the power of utterance. They stood overwhelmed with astonishment at their miraculous escape, and even the heathen Esquimaux expressed gratitude to God for their deliverance. Note, but high above desert renowned, let it be renowned high above desert.